I would love to have Nicole Bahari be Susan
She was
Storm.
on Sleepy Hollow, right?
That's right,
That's her.
Sleepy
Okay, right.
Hollow.
Yeah.
She was also in the movie Breaking alongside John Boyega. She was in Striking Vipers. Have you seen that episode of Black Mirror that had Yahya Abdul Mateen as well as Anthony Mackie? She is a talent, underrated, completely underrated, but like would have been. She looks fabulous blonde.
I
I'm just
just
saying.
I'm not naive to think that homophobia or hate crimes can't happen in New York, but it's New York is part of America. And for anyone listening, for people listening out there, I'm referring to O'Shea Sibley, who was, I think he was 28. He was with some friends. They stopped at a mobile gas station, and they were voguing, and they had just left Beyonce's concert at MetLife, I think, right? Or Beyonce's concert.
Really, let's definitely listening to
It
some
was
Beyonce out there.
listening to Beyonce, yeah, and they were kind of, there was a group of men that were hurling homophobic slurs, and then tragically he was stabbed, and then on the way to the hospital he died. And talking to you, Josh, I just wanted to see what did you think about that situation, especially as someone who works in queer spaces, and has that self-identification. Like, how did you feel seeing it? What was running through your head? Like, yeah, walk me through that.
Yeah. Honestly, it's so devastating. It really is. It's terrifying because as you mentioned, this is New York City, and when people think of New York City, especially right now, they think of a space that's super inclusive, that's super welcoming, and so many queer folks, Black queer folks specifically, come up here and we find community, as did O'Shea from Philly, and literally expressing Black queer joy, listening to Renaissance, an album that's all about Black queer joy and liberation, voguing, which came out of a similar situation within, the 80s, and up here in New York City within the Black and brown queer ballroom scene, and just simply with friends existing. And O'Shea's murder, senseless murder on top of that, is just another example of how Black queer people just are not allowed to simply exist. Even in the spaces that say you can come here and be yourself, we're still told in so many ways that we're not allowed. And granted, there's within the Black LGBTQ plus community, like there's so much just oppression towards just our own existence and our identities on a daily basis. I mean, I don't have to even get into what so many Black queer, bi, pan, men have gone through. But when you talk about Black trans people on top of that, like the fact that Black trans women are continuously targeted too. And so here's just, again, another reminder that Black LGBTQ plus folks, we're still not safe. We're still not free in these spaces, even though we strive to showcase our freedom. And that's the thing. Like, he literally was expressing himself and his freedom and was murdered just for being there and doing that.
And you see, yeah, you're just way more eloquent and articulate, and that's why I asked that. But was there again, there always seems to be this kind of tug and pull on, or push and pull on social media about, oh, I wasn't surprised. But was there a part of you that maybe you weren't surprised, but you were still maybe shocked, or because of Beyonce doing this tour, and that
Hmm.
there had been a lot of, positive queer reinforcement, and Pride was just, in June. Was there a part that was kind of like almost like a whiplash with seeing this? And did it seem almost like unbelievable in a way, but believable at the same time? You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, I do. I do. I'm not shocked. Unfortunately, we live in a country that was built off of black bodies,
Mm.
indigenous bodies, and I am, no stranger to the racism that our community experiences, and I'm no stranger to the homophobia that my community experiences too. And so, when the news broke, yes, it is devastating, especially when you're thinking about a person expressing themselves to an album that's literally about Black queer joy, and also right after experiencing Pride Month. That's devastating. But at the same time, I know where I live. And I also know that even though we've gotten so far when it comes to LGBTQ plus rights, there's still so many different things that we do not have. And one of those is also just simply basic respect from people who don't want to see us exist. And this was a classic example. Um, Unfortunately, O'Shea died, and yet we have the news of it. We have recordings of it. We see that. There are also countless other Black, queer, and trans folks who have lost their lives to senseless transphobia and homophobia, and we do not know who they are. And that's just as devastating. And so, on one end, I'm glad that there are so many people out here advocating for the community and talking about this and making sure that this story does not go under the radar. And I'm also happy to see that there are so many folks rallying around the Black queer community for offering support and condolences and compassion. But at the same time, like, I'm not a fool to the truth. And I know that my community deserves better. And the fact of the matter is that we don't have that right now. And so the fact someone came in, killed someone for simply them being themselves, that was it. And that's been a tale as old as time for many Black, queer, and trans people.
Um, so I guess kind of just going off of that, and because this is African time, and this is where it's very specific about people within the African diaspora, including us Black people in America and elsewhere in the world. But I guess kind of my question is like, because you're an editor for Into, which is a digital space that celebrates queer identity and
Yes.
and and it's a beautiful thing. But I guess in what ways does this event, maybe did it reinforce or did it almost galvanize like the work that you do and what you do around the queer community, and like how have you seen people, I guess, kind of almost give each other a hug and like rise up in the face of just this virulent, horrible homophobia that happened.
Yeah. No, completely. I like to say that I write at the intersection of Black, queer, and nerdy. And so when I show up in spaces, I bring my full self to it. So, I'm just as Black as I am queer and vice versa. And so for me, it's also extrapolated within my art and also the news that I cover. And so I'm constantly making sure that Into and all of our sister publications, we're pushing, yes, the LGBTQ plus agenda, but I want to make sure that all people from that community are reflected in there. And so for me, it's really about pushing in Black perspectives across the diaspora to make sure that that's represented. And for me, it's about making sure that's highlighted, making sure that our stories are told continuously in whatever capacity, whether it's through me or my contributors. But I think also making sure at the same time not to inundate completely with the things that we see within the media that tend to always show our struggle and our strife, but to also remember that we are full, holistic beings who also experience joy, and we deserve to see that too. And so what I do when I think about these moments, I want to pay respect to the Black folks that we've lost within the LGBTQ plus community to senseless violence for literally no reason, and making sure that they're honored, and also continue to make sure that I give resources and support to the rest of the community as we continue to fight and move forward for our rights, and just simply to be here, to simply exist, to go to work, grab a coffee, to go dance at a gas station if we choose to. That's simply that. But so for me, it's really about making sure that those stories are curated and told, and that our stories and identities are honored with every piece that I put out there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Wow. And I guess really my last thing that I want to ask is that as someone who is not part of the queer community, right, but has friends such as yourself
What's
that
up?
are
What's good?
that are in the queer community, and God, I almost feel like a white person, like, oh my God, what can I do to like help? But
Let me tell you, Melissa.
it's like, what can I? But I mean, in because there seems to be this kind of separation that happens when whether it happens to uh, black trans people, men and women, when they are killed, and there almost seems to be this like a separation instead of us all coming together. But I also know that sometimes um, you know, people, outside of the queer community, and to be specific, black people outside the queer community can almost try and supersede or like, try and take space where they're not, where they don't need to be. So, in your eyes, like, what is a way that people can be an ally, but not in the, as you said, Melissa way, like, and help out? You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to all the Melissas out
Yeah,
there. No, I think that one is simply to listen to us. You know, it's not like we don't have platforms, it's that we are prevented from sharing our stories. So we create our own spaces for that. But like, talk to us. As simple as that. I mean, if you don't have one queer or trans friend, what is going on? You should ask yourself that. And that to me speaks volumes. And to me, it also tells me that you are closed off from experiences that are outside of your own that still exist within your racial community. Like, we're still Black. All Black lives matter. And that includes everyone within the LGBTQ plus community. And unfortunately, it's not reflected in the same way when we see people basically, not caring about our existences. Whether it's, us simply being out here and proud and loud about ourselves and happy about it, or the fact that they're killing us out here in the streets. And on top of that, we're still Black, so we're still dying from everything else on top of that. Let's just be real. Like, everything else that's happening to Black folks is happening to the queer and trans people who are also Black too.
Fucking word right there.
So
God damn.
we're all there. So the thing is, one, talk to us. Listen to us, especially. Do not try to supersede, our experiences by injecting your own onto us, because if you're not queer, you're not trans, like, you don't know. So listen to us and let us tell you about what our experiences are. Another thing is, obviously I work within media. Consume our media. A lot of that tells our stories. Sometimes it's funny, trashy, reality television, but it's still telling stories. Make sure to look at the good and the bad. And I mean the things that are talking about the one child who is struggling navigating living in a religious household while coming out, or watching documentaries about Black trans sex workers navigating life and trying to show that, this is our existence and that these are other elements to who we are as well. We're not just simply trans. We're not just simply sex workers. We are people. We're humans too. Like, check us out. And I mean, I'm also specifically referencing the movie Blackbird with Julian Walker and Monique. And then I'm also referencing Kokomo City, which was just a new documentary came out by filmmaker and producer D. Smith.
Okay,
Like, these
so
are all things
I
like
need to write that down.
and those are, two different, decades here and there, but these are just two examples of like media. Like, just look at us, just listen to us. And I think that's just the first step. But also educate yourself. Don't expect every Black, queer, and trans person to be like, yeah, this is who I am. This is what I do. I like make my queer breakfast. I go out here and drink my queer drinks. Like, actually know that there are boundaries, but also educate yourself. Google is free, y'all.
Yes.
Google is not blocked here in the States and all the other places too. So, take that time to just do that research, read about us. Let's look at our work. There's so many great queer writers out there. And not even just the old greats, like you're thinking about James Baldwin, you're thinking about Zora, you're thinking about Langston. It's iffy. But you're also, thinking about like
Allegedly,
the other
yes,
people, like Michael Arsenault, and I'm thinking about George M. Johnson, all these wonderful folks who are sitting here telling stories that need to be told, and they're at your disposal at your local library. If you
Mm.
got the funds, put it on a Kindle, go out there and buy the book, support them and support those local books, the local bookstores too, but like, again, like just listen to us, educate yourself on our stories, talk to us and just learn. It's I feel like that's the bare minimum. And then the more you like actually connect with us, the more you actually understand who we are. I'm not expecting anyone to just do that so that way they can just approve my humanity. My humanity is here, period, without you
Talk that talk, boy. Talk
without
that
you
talk.
trying to understand any of that. But what I do expect is for you to respect me. And so one part of respecting someone is to actually learn about them. That's it.
And I mean, I feel like that's, of course, and it's not always just education or that kind of thing, but these are the kind of things that I'm afraid is that we as a culture and as a country and maybe the world really is kind of getting away from that, and we're seeing all the horrible things that are happening in Florida and but really around the
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Especially when it comes to like CRT and all that nonsense and all these backtracking and I realize that people, make the jokes, whatever they may be, and there's plenty of stuff in media that, um, even though it's not explicit, there's definitely undertones or implicit, suggestions of homophobia or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and just O'Shea, unfortunately, tragically, had to be a very real world example of what what those messages can eventually turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fucking shame that that had to happen. So
Yeah. It's a shame that we even have to talk about
have
it
this,
because,
yeah,
you know, the fact is that we're still not able to be ourselves and we're still not free, even though we strive to do it every single day. And yet someone's still going to stop us. I mean, in this country alone, there's almost 500 different anti-LGBTQ bills circulating within the United States now. The ACLU tracks it. You can literally go on their website. They have a map tracker. You can see exactly where they're coming from each state. And it's a shame. The last time I checked, it was actually specifically 492. And that's wild. And a
wow,
lot of them are targeting LGBTQ youth. A lot of them are targeting drag performers because apparently you can't go out here and just perform and give joy to people.
right,
You
yeah, those are
can't
the
be
ones
a
coming after
child.
your kids, apparently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah,
And of course it's targeting education
crazy,
too in order to just um, really prevent folks from just one learning about themselves and for others to learn about other people too. It's as simple as that. And it's a shame that one, we even have to talk about this, but I will keep talking about it until it's not there anymore.
right. Rest in power,
Hmm.
O'Shea
Rest in
Sidney.
power.
That's wonderful, great, thank you. You okay? You know exactly what you're doing.
I appreciate you in
Yeah,
that.
you just you killed that. You're like, oh yeah, thanks. Hit out the park. Well, I think that's just gonna be a perfect transition. And I guess we can cut, but whatever. Yeah, he knows what's going on. But yeah, I think we can just kind of move on to this Marvel stuff.
Let's talk. Let's talk.
DCE, Marvel
Mm.
E, nerdy. Let me just say right off the bat before we go into like specifics with the MCU and things like that. How do you feel about the term blurred?
I feel fine with it.
Yeah,
As someone who writes at the intersection of black, queer, and nerdy,
I
then
really actually like that. Like that's a that's
that's
a
it.
that's a
That's my
great phrase.
TM copywritten.
Yes.
So don't copy me, as Missy says.
Yes.
Okay, uh, but yeah, no, I remember there was a piece on the term blurred. I think it was by LeVar Burton's daughter over there. Star Trek, Reading Rainbow, and just talking about just the love behind just being affectionately knowing that we are these people who get into real geeky shit, and that's fun. Whether that's cosplay fandoms, anime, superhero fandoms, specifically like we're talking about. I for one, don't have a problem with it. If someone wants to call me that, I'm down because I am nerdy and I am also black. So to me, it goes hand in hand.
Okay. And so yeah, I think that is definitely Yeah, that's the positive way of looking at it. And you know what? Maybe that's how it should be. But I think maybe I've just been scarred as a child who, for what has always felt othered.
Yeah.
Not just because,
Mm.
because living in Madison, Wisconsin,
Mm.
and then living as a Ghanaian boy in the 90s.
Mhm,
This is
mhm.
pre-Black Panther. This is Wakanda. Nah, none of that was
Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
This was
Mhm.
African booty scratcher. This
Talk about
was
it.
kids,
Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Tons of appropriation.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I'm definitely coming from a place where I don't like seeing anything being othered.
Mhm.
But just from the way that you put it, you actually see it as like a celebration and as like a signifier of like, I am Black and I am a nerd. So I get it, but I guess still, why can't we just, and I mean Black, why can't we just be the, not mainstream, but just that,
Mhm.
a nerd?
Yeah.
That's it. Like,
Well, it's the same way that we can't just be American if you're born or become a citizen of the United States and you're of color, you're something American. But if you're white, you're just American.
you're just
Yeah.
American.
And though we're not going to get into the political part of it all, you're right.
Right.
I think where I see it as it being this more of a fun portmanteau of just celebrating two identities, and I see it as a reclamation because you're right in so many ways. And as a person who's also queer too, like they always have these different naming conventions of like, oh yeah, there's twinks, there's the otters, there's the bears, there's the daddies, but they don't necessarily put Black people in there, and we don't necessarily want to be associated with that either. Because on top of that, and I've said that before in other spaces and podcasts,
Right.
but like for the way that I see it too is that it's just simply a reclamation of something, and it helps us to find our own community because also as nerds, as very geeky people, we're also pushed out. I mean, there's so many think pieces and so many, I guess we can't call them tweets anymore, messages and posts.
At triple X's,
Ooh.
X's, X,
Oh my God.
X and O's, whatever the fuck.
X Games. I don't know.
Yeah.
That literally you have people just raising hell over one Black person cosplaying somebody else or being in some form of sci-fi film or horror film. And it's just like ridiculous. I mean, I remember when they were just throwing fits about John Boyega being in Star Wars. I'm sure they're gonna, pop a blood vessel when they find out that Amandla Stenberg is gonna be the lead in The Acolyte, a Black non-binary person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's that. And in a lot of ways, when we think of this word and when we think of just the space that we take up, it's all about reclaiming it and also making it our own. I love, love, love when I see Black cosplayers, other blurs out there, and they make sure to keep their natural hair. They throw in some twists. They throw in some braids. There's cornrows. There's a fro. And I'm like, that is so cool. And that's just us.
Yeah.
It is uniquely us, and it's our way to do so. And I love it.
And I definitely do not want to sound like, I mean, I know some British actor was like, no, I just want to be, I don't care if I'm Black. I just want to be an actor. I don't want to be a Black actor, whatever. That's the worst English accent, but it's fine. And I was like, so I don't want to do that where they're like, oh, I'm not Black, or or that kind of OJ thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not OJ, or I'm not Black, I'm just OJ. Like,
Okay.
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Sure, Jamie.
So I just, right, exactly. Like, I ain't trying to have that kind of conversation, but I am saying that that word, and of course, I don't, if it's something that we can take real agency of, which it seems like you have, that I'm all for. But I guess what I'm saying is like, if white person starts saying that, like, oh, you're a blurred, I'd be like,
yeah,
don't. That ain't for you. That ain't for you, K. Jasper, Tanner,
sorry,
Parker,
Skylar,
whatever your name is. That ain't for you to. You don't get to call me that, okay?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's my like. That's how I feel about it, and and that's kind of how I feel like when I look at Marvel and DC, of how, and that's why maybe I fuck with these Marvel more, because there doesn't seem to be that that like Americana, but like white Americana, like it's very easy for there to be Nick Fury that's Black,
Yeah.
right? Like there's no there. I mean, when I was watching what do you call it? Spider-Man, the animated Spider-Man,
Hmm.
where like this is why I got so confused when they were calling it a symbiote
Yeah.
in Venom, and I was
Hmm.
like, it's a symbiote. Why are y'all saying it the wrong way? Because I watched that show, but I remember Nick Fury, and in the comics he's white,
Yeah.
but then all of a sudden Nick Fury came, and it just is. I cannot wait, and it will never happen. You think they will ever allow a black Bruce Wayne, a black Clark Kent,
Listen.
a black Diana? Oh, there's no way. It can't happen.
Well, there is
It won't
Nubia
happen.
for Wonder Woman on that side, but I mean, look, Nick Fury is forever black now. Nick
Yeah.
Fury is forever Samuel L. Jackson specifically too.
Fair enough.
That's it. That is
I mean,
him.
what's his name? David Hasselhoff in back in the day was and I don't know what show you, but he was Nick Fury for like a hot second.
Now it's Sam.
Now it's Sam. So
That's that torch.
I guess that's why I'm saying, like, I want that to be that kind of easy, seamless transition where those things don't matter unless it has to matter, because then of course people always try to turn around. Well, why can't Black Panther be white? And like,
Okay, well,
again, it doesn't work like
it
that.
It doesn't work that way. It's the same way.
Tanner?
You're right. It's
I
the
don't know
same
why.
way that Miles Morales is Afro Latino.
Right.
It's not going to change.
Exactly. You know what I mean? It's just not the same thing, and you know it. But you know what? I think this kind of leads to the DC versus Marvel conversation. And we've kind of seen, or and obviously you've definitely seen the backlash. I mean, speaking of Samuel L. Jackson, against Secret Invasion. So first, I just got to ask: Have you seen it?
Yes, I've seen all of Secret Invasion.
Talk to me. What did you think?
Okay, so
as a fellow Baldy, Nick Fury, I was really, he had the different hats. Like, I was like, oh, let's go.
Right.
He ditched he had
That's
the
Unk.
beard on.
That's Unk right there.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So I was like, come on, man, you got to give us a little bit. And,
yeah, of course.
But yeah, talk to me.
No, I know there's a lot of conversation about this one being one of the weaker additions to the latest Marvel phase, and I understand, I recognize that. I think there are a lot of things that they could have done well. I think that off the bat, it started off very interesting, and then I think that towards the middle, it really started to hit a certain peak, but it didn't really cross over where it needed to be. I think that a lot of the actors in there, I mean, Samuel's great. I think that, what's his name? Kingsley Benadir, like Shakespearean to the T. You had also Olivia Colman out here just being delightfully just terrifying, in the best way possible. And then of course the Mother of Dragons, as she's at over there too. But like, I think what we expect from Marvel is a lot more gravitas, a lot more story cohesion. We didn't get any extra real tie-ins to other films or other properties. We didn't see where it's going to go to next, which of course you can infer that it's going to be a part of like the Marvels, because we still talked about Sword, and we're still talking about Skrulls, and we're talking about Kree, so that also brings in the Marvels that's coming up too. But I think that the issues in it is that it's just like it didn't recreate that same spy thriller magic that you had seen within like the Captain America sagas, which this is supposed to pick up from that. They're taking up the torch and running with it now that Captain America's lived his best life back in way back when with Peggy over there.
Yeah.
And chose to go back in time.
That's right.
But I think that that's what some of the issue was, is that how do you recreate that with new cast members who are not the main, except with the exception of Nick Fury, and how do you make that into something that people really want to lean into? And right now, that's what the MCU is doing. It's taking all of these other characters who were at one point or another supporting characters or background characters and giving them their full holistic development. And so we have to give room for that. And at the same time, we're here to be entertained, and we want to make sure that that fits the vibe. I just think that for this one, it kind of was too dark, too dramatic, and not enough substance to really bring it together. But you had fantastic actors who were literally trying to pull it along.
And I mean, for one, because I know you know this term, what's it called, fridging, and how they just got rid of Maria Hill.
Yeah, that was devastating.
Like,
I didn't like that at all.
Oh, sorry. I guess I have
Spoiler
to say
alert.
spoiler alert. Okay. them just killing off Maria Hill like that.
Yeah.
First episode.
Yeah.
And I was excited to see her, maybe bust out the shield or the whole shield persona and become that spy, because every other movie she's literally on the fringes, not really doing much.
Exactly.
And then so I thought this was going to be the moment.
Yeah. First episode.
Nick Fury's back, and they're gonna. And then first episode, she gets shot. And then so now
Unceremoniously.
here is the thing that was kind of bothering me, and so it gets revealed. Spoiler alert. It gets revealed that Don Cheadle, James Rhodey, is, or I guess they're calling him Scrody now, is a Skrull.
Yeah,
I think her name was Rava or something. We didn't even really get to know anything about whoever that Skrull was.
Right.
Like, she's playing Don Cheadle. And the thing that really annoyed me was that there were a lot of very Black-specific talking points between Don Cheadle or James Rhodey and Nick Fury. Especially that one scene where they come in at the bar and they have a very strong and then it turns out that that Rhodey is a Skrull, an alien who doesn't really understand those dynamics anyway. So like watching back and hearing him say, yeah, my brother and brother this, and we take power away from these mediocre, he says Alexander Pierce, but really means white people. Like, I'm like, so wait, why did y'all think that kind of conversation would be okay? Or because now it rings hollow and it's completely fake. Yeah. And why would Rava know about those kind of dynamics between two black men? That was a part of the writing that just seemed very weak and not well thought out to me. I don't know.
I thought it was so I recognize, and I feel like there's a lot of inference in this part too, but they did it. And when they talk about how the Skrulls will take on someone else's persona, whether they kill them or not, or they hold them hostage, as we saw what was actually happened to, spoiler alert, to Rhodey, they also take on memories too. And so in one aspect, you could say that's a way in which he understood the plight of Black folks through Rhodey's memories and added that.
But
right.
Yikes.
But also at the same time, Skrulls are a giant sociological experiment because they are alien entities from another world that do not understand what our version of racism and prejudice is. And so you throw in a Skrull who can look like a white woman one day and then look like a Latin man the next, and then they can literally see what life is like on either side or either identity. It's quite interesting. So I found it also interesting when Skrulls become people of color, like Black and brown folks. And I'm like, if you also are able to understand what we also go through, you'd think at one point they would try to go for the privilege instead and also undercover, but they don't. But of course, in this particular case, Rhodey is a high-powered Black man in the U.S. government.
Sure.
And so the Skrull, takes ownership over that. But to your point about talking about the conversation between those two, I found it really interesting. And I was worried they were going to go into some dangerous territory about respectability politics and shit. And I was like, ugh. They were straddling the lines. But I feel like Don Cheadle and Sam were like, we're not going to mess with that at all. That's not something we're going to do. And they reeled it back in. But I also found it interesting that as the show progressed, I was like, wow, there are 5 kind of central Black characters out of the cast. I was like, you had one, Samuel L. Jackson. You had Don Cheadle over here. You had Vara, who also is aka Priscilla, who also happens to be Nick Fury's wife. Spoiler alert, also a Skrull. And then you had another young Skrull joining Gravik, played by Kingsley Ben-Adir's character, the actor being Kingsley Ben-Adir. He was joining in on their front, and another Black man. And then, of course, there's Gravik.
Once again, but then, Gravik disposes of him ASAP.
Yeah. When
they all try to he's obviously a super Skrull, and what are y'all gonna try and do? Put a bag over his head?
I know.
To get rid of him? So that's what I was just watching it. I was just like, And then that last episode,
the fight scene, it's like,
So Gaia is the most powerful being in the MCU now. That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing, and she is now the super Skrull. She takes it over. I thought when I saw it, I was like, that's because they're not gonna kill off her character again like they did in Game of Thrones. And Disney knows that once they casted her into their show, they knew that they were gonna do right by her, but also you gotta do right by the fans. And so the idea of like embodying all these different powers permanently now and essentially being unstoppable while having it really doesn't make sense.
So
And have all this power, but all this responsibility, and yet you can go haywire at any moment. I don't know.
so you know something that I'm just gonna throw at you, just as like a little mini theory before we move on to something. Um, I was thinking because this is kind of just gonna flow right into our next thing. What if Rogue,
Mm.
like in introducing X Men,
Mm-hmm.
because in the comics,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Rogue, the way that she got her power, flight, and everything was by touching
Right.
Captain Marvel and
Mm-hmm.
taking her power. So,
Right.
what if, as kind
Mm.
of like solving this issue with the fans, where they're like, "Yo, she's really powerful." What if Rogue, you know, takes some of Gaia's powers, and and a Gaia can still have some of the other ones, but Rogue, can now have those, like at least like invulnerability, flight,
Right.
things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and still remain true to the character.
Yeah. As long as Kiki Palmer is playing Rogue, I'm fine with that.
Do you think that could actually happen?
She's the queen of manifestation. I mean, yes. If she wants to put it out there on social media, it will happen. But and I honestly, I co-sign it. And just to throw it out there, if they want to make Lakeith Stanfield opposite of her as Gambit, I'm fine with that too.
Where are you from? Is he from the South?
Uh, no, I think he's from California. I think he's from
Okay.
California.
Well, of course,
But that's
yeah,
okay. But
it
she's not
doesn't-
from the
yeah.
South either. She's from
It's
Illinois.
like Illinois, right?
Yeah, so it's fine. Like she can still say Suge if she wants to.
Right, exactly.
This North
And he
Carolinian
can do the
co-signs
whole-
it.
And oh yeah, you were the one that was saying that they could like twist it up. And
Yeah, they
actually
could
make
twist it
him
up. We can
Creole, right?
Yeah.
Like and make it like a Creole
instead of Cajun.
kind of. Yes.
Throw in some Miss Tina Knowles in there. You know,
Yeah.
give that backstory. Come on, Bayou. Yeah, no, I think that would be a fun one to then be like, okay, we're gonna retcon this story because also you got Captain Marvel, played by Brie Larson, one of the biggest actors out there, and let's be real, the MCU will also it's here to entertain, but it also is here to make money, and Brie Larson is a big name. And the film did extremely well, even though lots of men were super butthurt about it.
Don't start me with that MCU nonsense.
And this next movie with Nia DaCosta out here, and with Tiana and Iman, like it's gonna be fabulous. It looks amazing. But I do think that they wouldn't necessarily take her out this way, like what they would do with Rogue. Maybe they will, but I feel like that makes more sense to find someone else they can take off so they can continue moving forward with these central characters, especially since they're now bringing back with Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau trying to figure out their relationship together as like auntie and niece over here. So I don't think that's going to be something they would take away too quickly. They're trying to really build up these characters to set them up.
Okay, so
to fail.
I mean,
Hopefully.
so Josh, I guess I gotta ask: are you feeling? Because you sound relatively optimistic about MCU. Because I guess from a personal standpoint, but also just looking at the comic book landscape, and also and we have to mention the strike, the useless, stupid, like strike that is going on against these AMPTP, the Alliance of Motion Picture, basically the studios. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
And that the strike, these greedy ass studio people that will not pay their writers and actors.
Pay people what they're worth. Pay people what they're worth.
Why? Like I've seen like graphs that detail how much they're asking for. It's like 2 point something %.
Yeah.
And just considering what Barbenheimer is doing, or really Barbie, like I know Warner Brothers is, but I mean that's just kind of like an aside. Like pay your writers.
Yeah,
they deserve it.
Sidebar: a person who I would love to see into the MCU if they ever find a role for her, Taraji P. Henson, Oscar nominee. Did you know that in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, she only made $30K?
I heard about that. Yes,
wild. Yes, absolutely wild. And use that for her son's tuition.
You gonna do that to Yvette? Oh, Jody, baby.
It's everybody's
one of
rave.
the best movies of all time, and
Oh, baby boy.
I dare anyone to come in. I'll be like, yeah, I'll tell you.
I'm sure it's on BT right now.
It's
I'm
yeah,
sure
of
it
course,
is.
with all those horrible like uncut. I can't believe this mother flipper told me to come back.
If it ain't
Like,
Tyler
what
Perry
the-
production right now, it's
yeah,
definitely
exactly.
Baby
What is
Boy.
that? A mother flipper? um, but so yeah, I guess what I'm saying, with the strike going, but I heard that they might be coming to the table
I
on
heard
Friday.
too.
Hopefully,
Fingers
they should just do
crossed.
the right thing. But
Hmm.
how is the future of the MCU looking to you for right now? Because I'm seeing a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
A lot of it that is, unlike other times when it was just completely unfounded. Or now with what I've seen with Secret Invasion, what I
Hmm.
saw with Quantum Mania. I'm looking at it like
Hmm.
they have a point, but you seem optimistic.
Yeah.
How is the MCU looking? What do you think? What do you think is gonna do? What they're gonna do to like bring it back? What projects are you looking forward to?
Well, they're not going to be like DC.
Oh, okay,
I'm just going to say that.
That's
Just
true.
put that out there. But they're going to make sure to take care of their own house. But I think for me, I have one, because of that, I have no choice but to be optimistic. But also, there's so much beauty and beautiful narrative that comes from the MCU and superhero stories. I know people are like, oh, there's like fatigue from superheroes and this, that, and the third. But like, these are some of the films that are also creating great diverse representation across gender, race, and sexual orientation now that other films just aren't doing. And I'm also not mad at these Black and brown actors out here getting these checks as well, because these are also places that are employing them, but they still need to pay them with those checks. Okay, make sure that's clear. But again, these stories are creating a universe that people literally can see themselves in. Finally, they are inspired to do other things. May not necessarily feel like they can be a superhero, but they're inspired to do something super within their own capacity. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think about literally what Black Panther meant to so many different people. Like that alone, Black kids walking around doing the Wakanda salute, actually going to the theaters and saying, I remember just being floored by it and recognizing like if I had this kind of representation as a kid within superheroes, like what would that have done to me? Because at that point, all I had was the animated version of Green Lantern, and they made him Black, and I was like, that's great, I love that. And I mean, he's Black. Very Black. The things he was saying in an accent, I was like, oh, that's a Black actor playing him too. It's great. But like, that was one thing. But to see somebody who also looks like you, who you would literally see around the corner, like Chadwick Boseman was from South Carolina, a Carolinian, like myself. So, it meant something to see that. It still means something when I see Tiana Paris up there. It still means something when I see all these other folks who are out here. Going back, Samuel L. Jackson as well. It means something. And I think about how, of course, we have Black folks who are playing superheroes and villains, because good old Don Cheadle playing, dual action over here. But you also have fantastic representation for folks who are also of Muslim faith. I'm thinking about Miss Marvel and how that really dived into that, showing off Pakistani Americans living in Jersey City, and really highlighting those elements. I think about how there are women-led films, not only just on the screen, but behind the cameras too, again, with the Marvels and what that represents. And then thinking about how they're now finally moving in and highlighting queer representation. Loki will be coming through in October. That's a bicon. He is literally bisexual and gender fluid. And it also explains so within him and the variant Sylvie in the 3rd episode of that series. And I'm like, that's great. We need that. We also got Tessa Thompson and Valkyrie representing for us, who also is queer and Black and brown. I'm like, there's certain things that they're doing that other films aren't. You're talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer had how many people of color in that film? Exactly. So that's fine. They can create these Oscar, nominated hits and what have you. But MCU's doing it too, because hello, Auntie Angie. Angela Bassett over here, first MCU actor to get, an Oscar nomination. Not to mention, I think Black Panther was the first MCU film to receive an Oscar nomination. And they're both these two things. Again, Black Panther was the impact that Black Panther has alone. That also helped to catapult other things on top of that.
So, and I just have to, because you just brought up Black Panther, and I gotta say,
Talk about it. I'm ready.
I'm just, I'm trying to take a little deep breath, but I'm telling you, and it's very easy to kind of see this now, because Guardians of the Galaxy came out. I liked it. I thought it was, it was great. But the criticism that was levied against Wakanda Forever, nowhere in sight for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first chief
Interesting.
complaints. Yeah. One of the and what I've come to notice that as inclusive and as and just with you mentioning all these things, a, there's still a lot more to do when it comes to these subjects. And I think even more it's the fandom. And of course, there are a select few, it's a minority, but still just hearing some of the criticisms and the kind of the backlash that Wakanda Forever got, but then Guardians of the Galaxy, there wasn't that kind of vitriol for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess specifically, they would say stuff like, "Oh, Wakanda Forever." I thought there were too many, extra characters. Like, did we really need Val's character? Did we really need, the rest of the CIA? And this, I'm like, yeah,
Yes, we did, because we need to have an example of what capitalism and imperialism still does to countries today.
exactamundo. And people weren't trying to. And you know what? I've kind of thought about it, and I've kind of made this theory in my head about why Black Panther was actually really kind of embraced, by, of course, Black people, but also white people as well, because they weren't really named as the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Black Panther was more of an interpersonal kind of thing, right?
Right.
Between Michael B. Jordan kind of
Mm-hmm.
representing that diaspora,
Mm-hmm.
and then Wakanda representing Africa and that kind of conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
And white people could watch it and be like, yeah, I totally get it. Like, yeah, Killmonger, like, yeah, that's bullshit, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and they can kind of stay out of it. But Wakanda Forever was very intentional in whose fault it was, stirring shit up. So, like, and they named the countries too. France,
Yeah.
yup.
Mm-hmm.
USA, yup. They looking at
Mhm.
you. And at one point, that's very key scene where he was like, yeah, you're the president, we've been talking about destabilization. The fact that was able to sneak inside a Disney
Talk about
slash Marvel movie was wow. And you even saw depictions of slavery
Mm-hmm.
in a Marvel movie where,
Mhm.
like, the indigenous people were being whipped, like,
Yes. Mhm.
and then you see a person of color kill a white. I mean, you don't exactly see it, but you get it. And,
yeah, you get it.
and I think that's been part of why there is just that little bit of backlash, because I think Wakanda Forever, personally, in my humble opinion, was even better than Black Panther because it was able to expand upon the legend or the myth that is Black Panther,
Mm-hmm.
and also put it in the hands of very capable and great actresses,
Mhm.
Black women,
Mm-hmm.
from Nakia
Mhm.
to Okoye
Come on.
to Ramonda
Yep.
and Shuri.
Yeah.
4 Black women, 2 of them or 3 of them really, really, like, dark skinned as well.
Mm-hmm.
I totally hear what people say about, like, the lack of handicapped people in Wakanda, and I hear them on that. I truly do. But just to see that kind of representation, you don't see that anywhere. And I just was hearing a lot of this weird criticism, and I was like, oh, I see where that's coming from now. And then compared to Guardians of the Galaxy, which, great story, everything like that, but
Mhm.
mostly white characters. The music, even that was played, kind of just elicits a very nostalgic, what do they call it? Dad rock or
Mhm.
yacht rock,
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you can almost hear or, like, signal, like, oh, this is definitely for a very specific audience. I mean, I know they played one Earth, Wind, and Fire song,
Mm-hmm.
Reasons, but that was about it. Everything else was like, I don't know, Hard Credence, Clearwater, or whatever 70s group. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Did you ever feel those? Because you
Yeah.
work in that space, and did you see, like, a huge disparity between the criticisms that Wakanda Forever got that were lost, or, like, when they're like, oh, there were too many extra characters, and I'm like,
Yeah.
so what did the dog do
Yeah.
in Guardians of the Galaxy? What did the dog do? Or what about what's his name, Kraglin, the guy with the whistle thing? What did he do? What was his purpose?
Honestly, it sounds like the criticism that Beyonce got when they were like, there are too many people on this album. And I'm like, what do you mean? What's the problem? What is the problem?
Yeah.
This is a communal effort, just as much as this film is too. So therefore, we're going to put all these people and all these stories do matter. And I think yes, and at that point, I'm like, I am hoping to see folks with disabilities being represented within Wakanda, and I hope to see also more queer people. I feel like a lot of people, that there was a person that we perceived as queer, and I was like, at the end, I was like, I think that's part of the
What's her
film.
Michaela Cole?
Well,
Cole?
I should say I can't forget about saying about Michaela Cole as well as I'm gonna blank on the actress's names. Florence Kasumba. Yes,
Kasumba,
thank you.
yes,
Playing
yes.
Ao and Annika. And so I was referencing there was another man at the end, but yes, we lost out on a kiss between Florence and Michaela's characters, Ao and Annika. And
Oh, like
yeah,
due
it was
to
there was supposed to
censorship.
be a
Okay.
kiss between the two to solidify. Of course, at the end, we saw a very romantic gesture between the two to solidify that they were in they are in a relationship. But like, hopefully, we see more. But it was beautiful to see again a black queer couple that's comprised of two black dark skinned women. I was like, that's great, that's fantastic, and they're in charge of shit. Even better. So it's great. But I do think that the criticism that Wakanda Forever gets is definitely rooted within some racial tendencies or racist tendencies, excuse me. And I think that that's the same thing that came out when it came out. But also, when you think of women-led films, the first thing they go is, "Oh, this is crap. This is crap." But like, why is it crap? Why are you truly upset about it? And I like to think about how this film really went in about geopolitical nature of things, talking about what imperialism and capitalism has done to countries and still does to countries. Also, talking about how we, as Black and Brown people, also because of the impact of these things, are also pitted against each other, as they also showed within the film, and also how we can find solidarity against these forces at the same time, which we show that while also still holding on to who we are and our identities at the same time, which both Talokan and Wakanda get to represent. And I don't take that for granted. And I think that's Ryan Coogler is incredibly talented. He knew what he was doing, and especially for someone who had to create an entirely different film while still grieving the loss of his friend, as were his rest of his team, cast and crew. And then still be able to find something that not only honored Chadwick's legacy, but also is able to push the story along of what Wakanda represents, push the story along of what the Black Panther represents, and still somehow find a way to tie it all within to the MCU, because we still got all the connections within it, and seeing that there is a person, Val, being able to create their own Suicide Squad, so to speak, out of all these other anti-heroes. And so I thought it was a job well done.
Right.
And a
Thunderbolts
great
coming.
way
Yep.
to pay respects to such a great talent at the same time. But I think that if we're going to critique anything, let's really talk about, maybe the writing within there. Is there something slow that didn't connect with writers? Is there a plot hole here? Like, actually give me evidence. Don't just say it's bad and it's because there's a bunch of people. Well, those people served a purpose, and that's to also show the diversity within these two areas, Talokan and Wakanda. That's literally what they're here to show you.
Right. I mean, talking about real world, like real world consequences of it, the French ambassador, I believe, or someone working within the French government actually sent a letter because they did not like the French depiction of the mercenaries, right, that attacked the Mali place. So they actually, like, it was a official government screen. And I was like, that's what I'm saying, that this movie, yes, it's a movie, it's entertainment, but it had some real world implications
Yeah.
and the consequence. And I again, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
There and you kind of mentioned DC and some of the issues they're having with some of their stars,
Which
you know,
James Gunn is
Ezra,
over everything, and he
right.
just did Guardians. So
And hey, MCU, right now there are allegations, but we've heard some things against Jonathan Majors, and we've also heard some things about Tenoch, I think his name, yeah, the guy who played Namor,
yeah,
yeah,
that's a new one for me now.
Well,
So,
there you go, yeah. So we got to be aware, and for the people that suffered, victims, hearts go out to them, and we're just keeping it. But I don't know. Do you see any? And that's why I guess I'm talking about with the future of the MCU,
Yeah.
right? Like, are there any dark clouds, coming around? Or again,
Yeah,
like I
no.
said, you look pretty the way you're talking about it. Like, there are projects you're looking forward to. I mean, we haven't even talked about Fantastic
We have
Four,
not.
X-Men.
We have not.
You know, Blade.
Yeah.
If that's ever gonna happen,
Oh, Mahershala.
it's not gonna happen. That damn movie has been delayed since I don't know when. That dude came out, what, 4 years ago with that damn hat?
Mm-hmm.
The cap? Still nothing. Is it gonna happen? Also, recast T'Challa, yes or no? I'm putting a lot of stuff out here.
You were putting a lot of stuff out of here.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You can choose whichever one.
Well, I'll start off with the Dark Cloud, and so that is what the Dark Cloud's within the MCU, and so one, I will say before the allegations that came out, I was incredibly excited to see Jonathan Majors be cast in the role of Kang. I've been a fan of his work from, The Last Black Man in San Francisco and also with Lovecraft Country. Really, Lovecraft Country is what solidified it, is his acting talent to me. And it's really devastating to also have a black man on top of that with like unambiguous black features have an entire franchise now centered around him. And that's what exactly the expectation was. And then for these allegations to come out and see that kind of crumble slowly. And it sucks because on top of that, these survivors have, endured these different things. And yes, there's a case that's going to be coming through this month to go through everything. But like at the same time, like for me, it's like my first inclination is always to listen to the people who are surviving, these different attacks. And I'm not going to pretend like that doesn't exist. I also think that the MCU has in the past replaced people and also reconfigured their narratives. We unexpectedly saw Chadwick Boseman pass, and they were able to reconfigure the entire narrative around the Black Panther franchise, and that was famously done well. Also, we're taking it back to Iron Man. Terrence Howard was the original roadie.
Oh yes, right.
Yeah,
he
Mang.
was. That's right.
Yeah, Mang. That's right,
what
Mang.
it is, Mang.
He was.
So, talking about Mang.
He was the original
Hey,
roadie.
what's going on, Iron Man?
He was the original roadie.
Shout out to Jamie Foxx. What's going on, Iron Man?
Right. Who also is in the MCU now, thanks to that Sony and them getting together.
Right. Yes.
But they replaced him and for the second film, and like Don Cheadle has been roadie ever since. So I'm not gonna pretend like they can't find a way to redesign this if that happens. Now, granted, the trailer for Loki came out, and Jonathan Majors is in it.
Yes, he's featured. Victor Timely, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yet we don't know what that's going to look like. That they really could have anything in their back pocket and replace him. They could also keep him depending on how this goes. I think ultimately, like, what I don't want is for something to cause undue harm to any of the victims and any of the survivors that are out there. And I also hope that at the end of the day, like the MCU will do right by people, just as way they need to do right by the folks who are working here who need to be paid fairly. Those are my hopes. Going forth with your next one. What was the next one?
Recast T'Challa.
Recast T'Challa. That is a dicey one. People are not. They're so divided on that one.
That's why I asked you.
Yeah,
because you're a wordsmith and you know these things. Talk to me. This is a hard one for me because I recognize two sides of the story. There's one where it's like we want to honor the memory of Chadwick Boseman because we're focusing specifically on him as an actor and we don't want to tarnish his memory. And on the other side, because it's not like we're making him like Batman where there's like 50,000 different incarnations between Val Kilmer and Robert Pattinson. And on the other side, there's the talk about, well, Black Panther itself represents so much more. And that should be thrown in there. The way that I see it is that Shuri did take on the mantle of Black Panther. And I think when I hear a lot of the discourse, I feel like they center a lot on Black men and what that means for Black men. And I also feel that we also need to, when we talk about representation for Black folks, it also needs to include Black women and Black non-binary folks too. And Shuri became an example of that. Like how many films you get to see, not only a person who can fight, who was also incredibly intelligent. She's literally the smartest person in the MCU, and then now is like the hero as well. So many Black women are going to find that and find themselves represented. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I don't think that detracts from the memory of, one, Chadwick. I think it continues to throw in, the torch to someone else. But I also think it creates representation for people who also deserve to be represented too. You even mentioned it yourself. This film focused on Black women
in a variety of aspects. So for them to allow for Shuri to take on that role, I think is just another way of Ryan Coogler paying tribute to Black women and giving them their flowers at the same time. So much so that literally Angela Bassett got nominated for an Oscar. And she had a great script to work with, and she is a phenomenal actress. But I think that, one, I think it's a great thing. One, I'm going to say that. Great thing that they are moving forward with Shuri. And I think that it's great that Ryan Coogler found a way to honor Chadwick's specific memory and still able to find a way to push the story and the narrative of Black Panther and show that it can evolve to represent everyone. And that's what it needs. Because in the end, when we're talking about liberation for Black folks, it's not just so focused on Black men, especially Black cis men. It's about liberation for all Black people and representation for all Black people. And so I think that Ryan Coogler just ultimately made that decision to do just that and give representation to all Black people throughout his work.
Facts. And I I I agree with that, and I would still like to see at some point, maybe when the whole Marvel universe is rebooted
Mm-hmm.
as they do, I would hope to see the character of
Mm-hmm.
T'Challa again because
Mm-hmm.
um Chadwick gave an indelible and amazing
Yeah.
performance, but I refuse to think that he's the only person that would be capable
Oh
of
yeah,
doing
no, he
that.
wouldn't be the only person capable. That's for
Right?
sure.
And I feel like Black Panther or T'Challa specifically
Mm-hmm.
is also a very specific is also a character that should live on
Mm-hmm.
and through different iterations. And I guess with all this kind of multiverse talk,
Actually,
I don't know I don't know how Marvel is going to work it out, but I feel like that would give Marvel the option
mm-hmm.
to play around with some things.
You literally
What
took
were
the
you
words out. That
what were
I
you,
was
what were you
gonna
gonna
say.
say? Yeah.
That's literally an option right there. And with Deadpool 3 coming out next year in
Yeah.
May, that's
I mean,
supposed.
is it the
Well,
strike? But
you pay
and
people, and
maybe I
maybe it
should stop
will.
saying the strike because it ain't the writer or actor's fault. It's the
Right.
studio's
It's the
fault.
studios.
So studio
So
greed, whatever you want to call it.
studios pay your folks.
Yeah. Yes.
But like, if that does get to come out after they do pay people fairly, um, then we get to see the retconning of not only the 21st Century Fox films, but also Deadpool's addition into the MCU. And the overall, so far, the rumored premise is that there is going to be a lot of different multiversal activity and a lot of other variants pulling in there, like the 21st Century Fox X-Men crew that'll be coming in there, which there have been pictures of Halle Berry in her Storm getup.
Do we say spoiler for this too? Hey, if you don't want to know what Deadpool is about, Deadpool 3, just tune out for like maybe
Tune out.
a minute, okay? And
Just a
then come
minute,
back.
right?
Thanks.
We'll come back. But like, I think that leaves the windows open for an opportunity for other variants to come through. We've already talked about it and we've seen it happen. You saw it within the third Spider-Man film. There's a possibility of it within Deadpool 3. And there's still conversations about these different variants. We also saw it within Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where we got to see Lashana Lynch be Captain Marvel as opposed to being Maria Rambeau, and John Krasinski playing Reed Richards in Fantastic Four. And then, of course, bringing in from 21st Century Fox Films, Patrick Stewart as Professor X. So there's definitely possibility for all these different characters to come in and get new types. I actually thought that Yelena Belova was going to be a variant until they introduced her in Black Widow.
Right.
So, and that could have been a possibility. But yeah, I think that's definitely open for that to happen, especially when I think the film is Secret Wars, where all of the different variants come to Earth as the battleground to duke it out. And then that could be a way to again, for T'Challa's, the character and the narrative behind it to continue on. And I think also that the idea of Black Panther, of course, can move on with Shuri, but there's also still the son, and they're still building up young Avengers along the way.
Right. And his name is T'Challa too, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So that's why I'm just like.
So I don't think it's lost.
I
It's
don't
there.
think the character should just die.
Yeah.
And just be away because that was it's T'Challa in whatever iteration from the comics to TV to movies is just a great character.
Yeah. No, I agree.
From James Bond, Harry Potter, whatever you want. It's just great.
Mm-hmm.
There's one other thing that I wanted to share with you, in kind of the world, and I know it might be a little bit controversial to some folks, but I really hate Okoye
Really?
a lot. Yeah,
Wait.
I know. It's hot. It's
Whoa.
hot. It's hot. It's
Oh.
flaming hot Cheetos hot. But let me just explain real quick, and then maybe you kind of
Yeah.
understand.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okoye reminds me of every hardcore fundamental traditional auntie I've ever had.
Mm.
And I'm Ghanaian, and I know of that hardcore fundamentalist, like who is all about tradition and everything.
Mm.
So you remember from the first movie
Mm-hmm.
when she was like, the dude gets shot. What's his name? The colonizer.
Yeah.
Gets shot,
Yeah.
saving a Nakia's life, and she was just like, "Well, he chose to do that. Let's leave. We can't have them in the Wakanda." And then questioning T'Challa the whole time, like, look, I mean, what if he comes in here and then she's gonna mess everything up? And he's like, I'm very aware what I'm supposed to do, General. So she was just gonna leave him dead,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Second, what's his name? Killmonger takes over.
Mm-hmm.
Does she do anything to help T'Challa? No.
Mm.
Just sits by. And by the way,
Ooh.
remember during that great speech with Queen Ramonda, right? Angela Bassett was firing on her.
Yeah.
And she said, y'all sat there and did nothing while you Killmonger took the throne. And your ass just sat there, right?
Yeah.
And then I even remember the speech that was between Nakia and Okoye, right? Where they were like discussing, and she was like, okay, cool, you gonna come with us? We're gonna get the troops ready. She's like, no, I can't. I have to serve the throne. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she looked at him like, yo, the dude is crazy.
Right.
He's burning up the herb. He's going to destroy Wakanda. He's going to try and do a whole, what did he say? Yeah, the sun will never set on the Wakanda Empire. Some England Empire shit. They're like, this dude is nuts. I'm not a spy. I can't just come and go where I please.
I was like, okay, girl.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. And then what she said, I served Wakanda. And Nakia was like, I saved Wakanda. Then what happened? So that's Wakanda 1, or Black Panther.
Yeah.
Then Wakanda Forever, what she do? Because she's all arrogant and thinks she knows everything because she's a soldier.
Yeah.
Ramonda told her, look, let's not play with these Talocan dudes. Like, these people flying out of water. Like, it's not, nah, I got this. Do you need any backup? Nah, I'll take Shuri. We'll go get, what's her name? Ironheart, or what's the...
Yeah, Riri.
Riri.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. We'll be good. What happens? Damn humpback whales come out, Talocan eel.
Those humpback whales.
They fuck her up. And then she's talking about, I will die for that throne. Let me go save the princess. No. It's done. Turn your shield in. Put the harpoon, spear, whatever, fork. I don't know. Put it in the ground. You're done. This is why I hate Okoye. Thank you. What's your response?
I mean, you said I don't know.
And by the way, the best character, Nakia.
I love
Nakia be saving people.
Everybody.
What did she
in multiple languages?
In multiple languages. What did she tell T'Challa? She said, "Hey, we should just we got all these resources. Why don't we just, I don't know, help people?" And
what a thought.
And T'Challa's like, nah, we're not doing that. Killmonger comes fuck shit up, and then he's like,
actually,
and Nakia's like, dude, I told you that.
I know.
Who's the one that came to get the herb when what's his name? Killmonger was burning it all up. Nakia.
Yep.
Who basically saved T'Challa's life. Nakia.
Yep.
Who had the smarts to go to M'Baku and that tribe, right? That Jabari tribe to like save Wakanda. Nakia.
Yep.
Then in Wakanda too, who does Queen Ramonda go to in order to fix this problem?
All the way to Haiti. Nakia. She's that girl. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's true. And she saved also Princess Shuri, and she saved Riri as well. By herself. She went in there as a spy.
And look, hey, I understand that you need a character like Okoye.
Yes.
Because you will always have the soldier, the traditionalist. You need that.
And that's what it embodies.
And I'm not criticizing Ryan Coogler. You need that character.
That was important.
That was perfect. But the whole time I was watching, I was like, I can't stand you.
Yeah.
And when she was getting reamed out by Ramonda, I was like, get her, Jane. Get her, Jane. Get her.
I still got chills and goosebumps from that scene. I was like, oh, it was in the trailer alone. I was like,
she said,
Miss Bassett is,
and you lost her.
Mm.
So give me, you will be stripped of your general. You damn right.
Ooh, it's
You
true.
damn right.
Yep. And she
And
was
who did she go
dumbfounded.
get?
Face cracked.
Fucking
Gagged.
the boss, Nakia.
Mm-hmm.
She been running shit from the get.
It is what it is. Facts are facts.
Huh? When what's her name? Shuri had the whole what saw Killmonger in her dream,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and Nakia was right there. Who did you see?
Who did you see?
Huh?
She
Who
knew.
did you see? Yes.
She knew. She been know. She
Like,
always know.
Hey, if you're doing this out of vengeance, that's not gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, Nakia MVP.
Yeah. Literally.
So Okoye, hey, I know they might do like a spinoff with the
like
Midnight Angels
Yeah, Midnight
or
Angels
something.
season.
Great. And I want her as a character, but
Yeah.
I just want her to know, yeah, you were in the wrong.
Yeah.
And you and look, hey, Claw sucks. There are a bunch of
yes.
other villains. Killmonger is trash. He's like the most hoteps of hoteps. Like, oh, people are my people. Shut your ass up. No. Even though, again, very well done, Michael B. But I hate him so much. But Okoye,
She takes the cake. Oh my God.
so yeah,
I've never heard it that way.
That look.
Yeah.
You're looking at me like, oh, what is this dude about to say?
And then you said it, and I was like, well, here I am, listening to facts. And being like, well, there are no lies detected, and I see it. And as you said, the character has to exist to be able to create that tension.
Exactly.
As it did in Talokan as well. They had their
Right.
character too, but like, you're right.
And that whole back and forth between her and Atuma, I think, the other, that was great. And her coming into her own as the Midnight Angel. And also, you know what? Kind of breaking away from the very rigid, her being a soldier.
Tradition.
And this is her
Continuing that.
Now
So
we're
now-
about to see the growth. That's
Exactly.
why, again,
That's what they do. Ryan Coogler.
I am glad that she's in it, but hate her as a character. 1000%.
Maybe you will. Maybe she'll redeem yourself in your eyes.
Maybe.
in the mini series that comes through.
But I'm telling you, when she was like, oh, I got Shuri, don't worry. And Ramonda was like, please don't.
Uh-oh.
Like, listen to me. We saw the fish guy. No. I can handle it. I'm Okoye. I am of the Dora Milaje. We're good. I was like, okay. Play with Namor if you want to. Namor. Yeah.
She
play
did.
with him if you want to.
She did play. He
And
can
see
fly,
what
y'all.
happened.
He can fly and swim. That's something to be playing with.
Josh, real quick, tell me why I should give a fuck about the Fantastic Four. I never cared about that family. Why I don't care about a dude that is always on fire, someone you can't see, a dude that stretches like Twizzlers,
Someone you can't see.
and a Rocky dude. I don't care.
Oh my God.
Tell me, just real quick. Tell me.
So the reason on the comic and canon side of things why you should care is because they are going to be the next backbone of the MCU. That's essentially it. In their connection with Kang, depending on how this plays out. But that's essentially why. And I say that because in a lot of ways, they are a vehicle towards bringing in Secret Wars, but also a vehicle to bring in X-Men as well. And they've already sowed the seeds for both. And we're starting to see things manifest a little bit more. It's slow as hell, but we're seeing some things move. And granted, there's all this talk all online about the different fan castings, and everybody's been saying this, that, and the third. And I just want some people of color in the casting. Thank you. But
They only gonna give us one. It's gonna be the one where you can't see him. It's gonna be the
and
thing.
they've already said
They gonna call him the thing.
they've already. Oh my
That's
God.
right. That's what his name is gonna be.
Oh my
The
God.
thing.
They're going. Oh my God.
Hey,
Just like, lay
thing.
my burdens down right now. Take me now, Lord. But they've already had this conversation about like circulating Daveed Diggs potentially being Ben Grimm the Thing.
That's right.
Which I'm tired of black folks and specifically being
yes.
held behind characters that are digitized and CGI.
Yes.
I'm still mad about Lupita Nyong'o, if we're going to talk about her characters being out here as the alien, her big role after getting that Oscar. I was like, okay, that's not okay. But like, they've already talked about him being that. And I get on one end that it would be very interesting to have, one, a black biracial Jewish character portray Ben Grimm, who is also in the comics Jewish, and actually go into his Jewish faith, which would be great, and his Jewish identity. But at the same time, I am still tired of black folks being forced to hide behind CGI'd characters and not being able to give us the representation that we also deserve. So That's one thing. And I also, for me, I would have loved to have, which is not official, the casting, I would love to have Nicole Bahari be Susan
She was
Storm.
on Sleepy Hollow, right?
That's right,
That's
Sleepy
okay, right,
Hollow.
yeah.
She was also in the movie Breaking alongside John Boyega. She was in Striking Vipers. If you've seen an episode of Black Mirror that had Yahya Abdul Mateen as well as Anthony Mackie, she is a talent, underrated, completely underrated. But like, would have been. She looks fabulous blonde.
I
I'm just
just
saying.
the only reason why I just have so much hesitation with Fantastic Four is like all these different iterations, and y'all still weren't able to get it right. Like X-Men, y'all got
Yeah.
it right.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, y'all got it right. And I mean, hey, shout out to Blade, the granddaddy of them all, which people
Wesley.
don't like to pay attention to.
They don't.
But he was the one that started it off,
Right.
really.
Exactly.
People are like, oh, The Matrix came out before that.
Yep.
Spider-Man came out before that. X-Men came out before that.
I'm just saying, if it wasn't for Blade Trinity, I do not think that Ryan Reynolds would have a job as Deadpool because his character literally uses dual swords. I think that was enough to show.
Like that was almost like a test screen.
Right.
Yeah.
That was enough to show that, hey, you could be
So
the
that's
Merc
why I
with the
want to
mouth.
give a shout out to Blade. But so that's the only reason why I'm kind of skeptical, because I'm like, if you're able to get all these other superhero properties and doing well, what is it about Fantastic Four that we're missing? And what is Kevin Feige going to do differently that these other people haven't? What do you think?
I think, one, you make them all white, it's going to lose a lot of interest, one, because again, they are the vehicle for X-Men as well as the Kangs, the future of Kang, right? But I'm just saying, when
The Kangs.
the Kangs,
The original Kangs.
the original Kangs, we was Kangs,
OG Kang.
But I also think that, you know, making them white is kind of doing a disservice when we have all these different characters and this diversity of like black and brown new stories coming out. So just doing that and having us focus only on a film, whereas these four white folks would be a detriment to what they're doing. I will say, however, like moving forward, if we're trying to like, you know, talk about X-Men and stuff, technically in the comics, Reed Richards and Susan Storm's son, Franklin Richards, is a mutant and one of the most powerful ones on top of that. And so much so that he is able to honestly rewrite universes if he needs. He can rewrite reality. He is like Wanda, all right? And on top of that, Kang is connected to Reed Richards because they are also family. Long, very distant into the future, of course, but like a descendant nonetheless. And so that also ties it in. And so that means if they're going to be a part of that, we can dive into what that looks like if they, one, connect, what it looks like when they have a child, if they already have a child, if they're introduced, because this may not be, from what it's been told, an origin story of Fantastic Four, but more so just introducing them to the rest of the MCU already set as Fantastic Four, which means there could be a child already. And if that child is there, that child's a mutant. And if that child is a mutant, which we've already had the conversation about Iman Vellani's character, Miss Marvel, being potentially being called a mutant she was, in so many words, called a mutant at the end of Miss Marvel, then you have an opportunity to continue this move towards mutants and introducing them into the MCU. But that's, again, depending on if we're getting the Fantastic Four and who's going to play on that on top of that. So I don't know. It's dicey because I want representation and I want diversity within there. And I also recognize that these characters were like the original family and like the original crew within Stan Lee's Marvel, universe. So I recognize what reverence they have. I also recognize, though, that if they're going to be introduced, we already have the Avengers as the OG family now for the MCU. So what else can they bring? And I think ultimately it's just using them as a vehicle for these new properties to come through.
Josh, I just want to say you are brilliant. Thank you so much for blessing me with this comic book knowledge, your knowledge of the queer community, coming here with the Marvel talk. You are so great in so many avenues as a TV critic, a movie critic, an editor, and you do all of these things. But I'm also just really happy that you're my friend. And thank you for coming. Can we get you back on here? Like this needs to happen again.
Yes. Y'all heard it.
It's
confirmation.
So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. And this man right here, Josh, thank you so much for blessing me with your knowledge.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here and
I
happy
still
that we have
disagree
this
with you
friendship.
about the Fantastic Four, but
Listen.
whatever. It's fine. And the whole blur thing. But yeah, I appreciate you, man. You're the best.
Appreciate you too.
Thank you.